This is AJ from Sports Hub Media with Randy Hahn, who's the play-by-play commentator for the San Jose Sharks. Thank you, Randy, for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, AJ. It's nice to meet you via Zoom.
Nice to meet you too. So, tell me, how did your love for sports begin?
Well, I think it was probably when I was a young boy growing up in Canada. I was born in Edmonton, Alberta, and that's a famous hockey town because that's where Wayne Gretzky really came to the forefront. But this was long before that. And I was probably, I don't know, 8 years old, and I had a small little transistor radio. And I used to lay in bed at night when I was trying to fall asleep, and I would play with that radio, and I would be able to pick up radio stations from really far away, even as far as San Francisco, believe it or not, and places like Utah and Washington State. And I would hear sports games on late at night, sometimes football games, basketball games, sometimes hockey games. And that intrigued me, and I would start to get interested in that at that point. We had a football team in the Canadian Football League in Edmonton. It was called the Edmonton Eskimos, and they're very good. They were a very good team. And I would listen to those games on the radio at home in the evenings, usually on Saturday night when I was allowed to stay up later. And I would get very excited about those games too, because that was my hometown team. So that's kind of when the seeds were planted. I did start going to some hockey games. Of course, I played hockey. Every Canadian kid, it seems, grows up playing hockey at some point. So I was already introduced to hockey at that point. But I think I started to develop an interest and later a love for all kinds of sports, probably at that age, right around 9 or 10 years old, and then going forward.
W- Besides hockey, were there any other sports you played when you were growing up?
Oh, sure. We played baseball. We played not so much soccer back then. We played ball hockey. So when there was no snow or ice, we would just be in our sneakers and have a hockey stick with a tennis ball. And one of my neighbors was lucky enough, his father built a net so we could still play hockey in the summer too. We played cricket, believe it or not. That same friend had cricket bats, and we learned how to play cricket. So we would go out into the field next door to his house and play cricket too. And those are pretty much the sports we played, as well as just the wintertime things you do in Canada, like just going out skating or sledding in the snow or tobogganing in the snow. Those are all things we did growing up.
Did you have any favorite teams growing up, like your favorite hockey team or favorite baseball team?
Sure. Well, when I was young, there was only originally there was six teams in the NHL. Now there's 32. It's hard to
Yeah.
believe it was that small back then. But until 1967, there were only six teams, and there were only two Canadian teams, the Montreal Canadiens or the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they were both really far away from where I grew up in Western Canada. They're in the east coast of Canada. But most Canadian kids would pick one of those teams to cheer for. And then once in a while, when you got to see Hockey Night in Canada, which was only on once a week on Saturdays, that was the chance you got to see your team. So my hockey team was the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then, of course, my football team was the Edmonton
Edmonton.
Eskimos, my local team. And then when I got older and moved to the U.S., and started working for teams, I had some favorite teams as well. And probably my favorite baseball team back in those days was the San Diego Padres. And yeah, that's kind of it. And soccer wise, when I started to work in soccer later, I always liked watching the Brazilian soccer team because of how flamboyant and skillful they were.
I mean, they're very good. The
Yeah,
Brazil.
really good.
Their trophy case a lot.
They need to build a bigger one every year.
Yeah. I read on your Wikipedia page that you got a job as a DJ when you were 15. How did that come about?
Well, you're right. And it was just by chance. I was old enough to babysit at that time just to make some extra money when I was 15. And the people next door needed someone to watch their kids once in a while when they went out for dinner or stuff like that. So I would We lived in an apartment at that time, and I would watch their kids. And this guy worked at the local radio and TV station in town, in a town called Whitehorse in the Yukon Territory, small town, about 20,000 people. And it had two radio stations. And he worked at one of them, and one day said to me, "Hey, we're looking to hire a high school kid to work part-time at the radio TV station, just to do odd jobs behind the scenes, unpack boxes and put videotapes in the shelves and just kind of stuff like that." And it was going to pay $2 an hour. So I said, sure, I'd like to try that. So I started doing that. And then after a few months, I got more responsibility. And one day they asked me if I would like to be a DJ on Saturdays and Sundays from 2 in the afternoon to 6 p.m., 4 hours each weekend day, Saturday and Sunday when I wasn't at school. So I said, sure, I'd like to try that. And they taught me how to do that. And yeah, when I was 15 years old, I was getting paid to be on the radio. And it turned out to be my job I've had my whole life. Most people, when they're 15, don't find their career. It takes going through school and college and getting out into the world and finding what you like. But I discovered that I liked that a lot, and that became my job up to this day. So I was really lucky to find what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I guess 50 years ago, because I'm 66 now. So when I was 15, that was 51 years ago.
In one of the articles I read about you, it said that you were more interested on being on the production side of broadcasting. Why did you find that more interesting at the time?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think part of it was working at the radio and TV station. At the beginning, I was just working off camera, off air, behind the scenes, and I learned production things like how to run video and how to run switchers and how to run the camera and how to set up the lighting. So at the beginning, you're right, that was my primary interest. But then as I got to be a broadcaster and be on the radio and eventually on the TV, then my focus shifted to that because I was lucky when I got older. I had a decent voice, and that helped a lot, especially on radio. And I just like being behind a microphone and eventually in front of a camera. So I kind of shifted away from the production side of things. But it must run in my family because my youngest son, Michael, he's in video production now. So that's what he does.
Oh, I did see his interview with you.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah, he's a big sports fan and a huge Sharks fan.
if I have this correct, you went to Vancouver for college, got a part-time job that turned into full-time, and then you've moved to Edmonton to do play-by-play for a soccer team called the Drillers in the NASL. Walk me through
Correct.
that time and how you ended up covering soccer.
Well, I got my first job in TV, as you said, back in my hometown of Edmonton. That was in 1980. And I was like an evening sportscaster. So you would turn on the news, say at 6 p.m., and they would do the news, and then they would do the weather, and then there would be a 5 minute segment for the sports. And that's what my role was. But that station also was the station that did the play-by-play on TV of the Edmonton Drillers in the North American Soccer League. And the main sportscaster at the station, he was the announcer for those games, but he also had a lot of other responsibilities doing games for the Edmonton Eskimos and things like that. So on one occasion, he had a conflict. He had to choose between doing a football game or a soccer game. And he decided he was going to do the football game. And now they needed someone on short notice to do the soccer game, like literally the day before. So they asked me, have I ever done soccer? And I hadn't really done the play-by-play of a soccer game or much of anything, but I had covered soccer. So I kind of fibbed a little bit and I said, oh, sure, 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 I did that. And they said, well, can you go to Houston, Texas tomorrow morning and fly there and do this soccer game on the radio? And I went, okay. So I flew there the next day with another gentleman who was my co-commentator, my color commentator. And I did my first play-by-play of a professional sporting event. And that was the Edmonton Drillers against the team from Houston at the Houston Astrodome. And that was on the radio. And that was the beginning of doing soccer. And then ended up doing soccer for quite a long time after that. And that was my first play-by-play for professional. And my first hockey play-by-play would come after that.
After the Drillers folded, you went to San Diego to do play-by-play for another NASL team, the Sockers, which you did for 9 years. What did you remember most about that period?
Well, the best part was how good the team was. I ended up being there one more year later, and I was there 10 years with the team, and we won the championship 9 times. So that's a dynasty unlike any other in pro sports, certainly at that time. And it was very exciting to my very first year when I got there in 1982, they won the championship. So to just step into that situation and automatically be with a winning team and have a celebration at the end of almost every season of being champions was amazing. It was also great moving to a beautiful city like San Diego. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's
Oh,
awesome. It might have the perfect weather in California. It's nice 12 months of the year, never too hot, never too cold, living by the ocean. And for a kid growing up in Canada and living in places like Edmonton and even more remote places like Whitehorse, to move to a place like San Diego and get to work there was like winning the lottery. And it led to me working in baseball with the San Diego Padres, in football, in the NFL with the San Diego Chargers, and many other opportunities. And eventually led to me working with the LA Kings and getting into the NHL. So it was a very exciting move at the time, but it turned out to be, again, another major turning point in my career and in my life because I met my wife there and, started my married life in that city as well. So it was a big change for me to move to San Diego.
well, San Diego's a very nice city. I've been there a
Yeah.
couple times. And did you do broadcasting for any other sports during that period while you were
Yeah, so I started to get other opportunities working on the San Diego Chargers broadcast because the same station that did the soccer games also covered the NFL. So I got to be the pregame, halftime, postgame host for the Chargers, and I did color for a couple of games. I did the talk shows when people would call in with comments and questions. With the San Diego Padres, I got to be the assistant public address announcer. So I wasn't on the radio or TV, but when you were in the stadium, it would be like now batting for the Padres, Steve Garvey. And then, that when you're in the stadium, you hear that announcer. Of course, that's different than radio or TV. I didn't do baseball on radio or TV there, but I got to do that. And, there were various other opportunities to do sports, but it was mainly in those years, it was the Chargers on the football side and the San Diego Sockers on the soccer side, and then those baseball PA opportunities, public address.
I know you were a part of a group that helped San Jose land the Sharks. How did you get involved in that, especially when you were a soccer broadcaster in San Diego at the time?
Well, actually, by that time, I was doing the soccer, but I was also working on the LA Kings broadcasts on television. I was hosting the pregame show, came on half an hour ahead of time, and then when they went to the intermission breaks, I would come on again and covering those games. And at the same time, my wife got a job offer in San Jose, so we relocated to San Jose, and I would commute to Los Angeles to do the Kings games. And it was at the same time that the city of San Jose decided the people voted to build San Jose Arena, which we now know as SAP Center.
SAP.
And there was a lot of question who was going to play there. Would there be a team there? And a lot of people thought the Warriors would move from Oakland to San Jose. Well, of course, that never happened. They did play one season
One
there when
year.
they renovated the Oakland Arena, but the Warriors, of course, never moved. So I got involved with a group of two or three other people who thought it might be a good idea to see if we could promote the idea of hockey coming to San Jose. So we formed a group called NHL Hockey San Jose. The NHL eventually made us change that name because there's a thing called a trademark on their NHL name. So we changed it to Pro Hockey San Jose. And we began working to convince the mayor of San Jose, the city council, the business community, that having a hockey team in San Jose would be a good idea. And then on the other side of it, I was already working in the NHL with the LA Kings. So I was able to talk to people in the hockey industry that San Jose would be a great place for the NHL to have an expansion team. And little by little, we chipped away at that. And then people with lots of money became interested in what we were doing. And they eventually were the ones, of course, that ultimately made it happen by acquiring the franchise. But yeah, we did some groundwork back in those days in the late 1980s and early 1990s. And as it turned out, I helped create my own job.
And now the Sharks are the Kings' rivals.
Right. That made it even more interesting. And then it was funny because a lot of the players that were on those Kings teams when I did those games ended up becoming San Jose Sharks later on. Players like Tony Granato and Bernie Nichols and Marty McSorley and Kelly Rudy. These were all players who I knew from LA and became San Jose Sharks. And of course, Wayne Gretzky was in LA there when I was there as well. So it was my second encounter with him because he was in Edmonton when I was working on TV there. Sadly, Wayne Gretzky never became a San Jose Shark, but we've maintained a friendship over all those years, dating back to when I first started in Edmonton back in 1980. So I've known Wayne since he was barely in his 20s. We're a similar age, so we've kind of followed the same path in that regard. That we're both still in hockey. Of course, he's arguably the best player to ever play, and I would never be able to play in the NHL. So we're very different in that way.
And imagine if Wayne Gretzky was on the Sharks.
Yeah, it may have changed our team. It would have changed our team in a very big way. But as it turned out, just the fact that Wayne Gretzky went to Los Angeles probably is one of the big reasons that the Sharks exist, because it proved that hockey could be very successful in California because it was in Los Angeles, and it made investors start thinking about other places that hockey could end up being in California. And of course, the Sharks are one of them, and the Anaheim Ducks are the other. And I'm not saying Wayne Gretzky's the only reason that the Sharks and the Ducks exist, but I think he is a major reason. And because he went to LA, it made it all happen a lot faster than it might have if he would have never gone to California.
I mean, we'll get to this later, but still, the Sharks still upset the Red Wings in like their third year of existence.
Yep.
And how did you end up being the broadcaster for the Sharks?
Well, originally they wanted somebody to do the first season that was a known announcer in San Jose. I really feel that they felt that was important. And that wasn't me because I wasn't known in the Bay Area. And they hired Joe Starkey and had been a hockey broadcaster in the days when the Colorado Rockies existed as a hockey team. And they would later move and become the New Jersey Devils before we have the Colorado Avalanche now. So he was an announcer for them way back in the day. But in the Bay Area, he was most known for being the radio announcer for the 49ers and also for Cal football and basketball. So he was a very well-known name. But he couldn't do all the Sharks games because he had those other teams to try and fit his schedule into. So whenever he couldn't do a Sharks game, I would do that game on television in the first two seasons. And then in the third season, Joe Starkey decided that he just had too much going on and he stepped away from the Sharks. And I got the opportunity to do all the games. And I've been doing all of the games since year two. And I'm now I'll start my 35th year with the team, my 33rd year as the full-time announcer.
And now a lot of people know you now after those.
Yeah, now I am a well-known Bay Area announcer, I guess.
What is your most memorable play call?
Well, the most memorable for me, there's two. And there's, the first memorable one always seems to be the one that sticks with you the most. And that was in the third year of the Sharks. And no one expected them to make the playoffs because they were terrible the year before. And they had a miracle season. and they improved by 52 points from the year before. And they made the playoffs as the eighth seed. So they were the last team to make the playoffs. And when you're the last team, you have to play the first team that made, the number one ranked team. And in that year, it was Detroit. And Detroit was favored to win the Stanley Cup that year by a lot of people. They were a really good team. And in game seven in Detroit, Jamie Baker, a player for the Sharks, scored the winning goal in the third period, and the Sharks upset the Red Wings in that game in Detroit and won that series in game seven. And when Jamie scored that goal and it held up to be the game winner, that for me is my broadcast highlight career and the highlight of my career. And number two would be in 2019 in
Barclay
game
Goodrow.
seven against Vegas. Barclay Goodrow scoring in overtime to win one of the most remarkable comebacks in NHL playoff history. Those would be two highlights in hockey, and highlights anywhere else would certainly be doing the World Cup games for soccer on ABC, ESPN, and TNT. And one game in particular I did between Brazil and Argentina, which was in Italy. It stands out as a highlight. A stadium full of people, 8,000 fans were there, had traveled from Brazil to be at that game and to watch some of the great players in the world like Diego Maradona and some of the great Brazilian stars of that era. That would be a highlight of my career doing that call as well.
And what is your proudest career moment?
Uh, Well, it would probably be that first win over Detroit when Jamie Baker scored, because as you mentioned earlier in this conversation, I had worked behind the scenes to try and bring a hockey team to San Jose, and to go from just putting flyers on people's car windows to tell them about hockey to actually a number of years later being able to call a game where the Sharks pulled off that upset and won a playoff series, their first ever. That was the proudest moment for me.
And that was the end of the career section. So now we're going to go to doing the job. So walk me through a typical game day for you.
Typical game day is a little different at home than on the road. At home, I'll start working on my game day preparation far before game day, usually the day before. But on game day, I'll start going into my notes at about 10 in the morning. I don't usually drive into San Jose. I live in Gilroy, so it's a bit of a drive going back and forth and then going back to the arena at night. So I'll usually stay home and do research and notes and watch video of the Sharks and also the team we're playing that night. And then around 3 in the afternoon, I'll drive to the arena, start getting ready. I'm in my suit now and all of that. We have a production meeting with our producer and the other announcers and other technical people, and that happens at 5:30. Then by 6 o'clock, I'm up in the broadcast booth, getting myself all set up, getting my computer set up, all my paperwork, all my notes. Then at 7 o'clock for a 7:30 game, both teams come out onto the ice and they do a warm up. And by then we're already doing a segment on TV, so we're involved with that on the pregame show. And then the game starts around 7:35, and we're underway. And once it's over, we do a postgame segment, and then it's back home. And I'm usually back home by 11 p.m. It's similar to that on the road, but on the road, I would usually go to the morning practice when both teams are there. And that's a chance to talk to the players and get some more information that can be used in the broadcast that night. And instead of going home after a road game, unless we're flying home that night, we would just fly to the next city.
Do you have like an overnight trip and like, do you stay at a hotel some days?
Oh yeah, we stay in the hotel a lot. Probably 120 or 130 nights a year are spent in a hotel. So there's lots of traveling, lots of sleeping in other than your own bed. But it's nice when we get home, and especially if we have a long homestand, then you can settle in again and get back to your home life. But yes, we travel a lot and stay in a lot of hotels.
Do you fly with the players or do you fly on a separate plane?
I fly with the players. I always have.
And what would we find you do on a non-game day?
Well, non-game days are kind of getting ready for the next game day because the season moves so quickly. There's 82 games. It all takes place in about 6 months. There's not much downtime. So more often than not, we're playing every other day. So if we have a game on Saturday, my off day would be Sunday, but I'm starting to get ready for the game on Monday and so on. And it's that way on the road too. You do get a little more time with family when you're home and a little more time to explore a city when you're have a day off on the road. But it's usually just transitioning to the next game. It's just a repetition. It's very much the same routine. Do the game, get ready for the next game, do that game, get ready again, and then mixed in with that is all the travel. So it's pretty simple. It makes it easy to have a routine. You're always getting ready for that next game.
How closely are you following the other teams in the league?
Uh, as closely as we can. Obviously, our focus is on the Sharks, but
Sharks.
there's 31 other teams, so we're always watching who won the night before, watching highlights of the games on TV or online. And you're especially focused on the teams that are coming up on the schedule for you. So if you've just played Anaheim and your next game is against Carolina, and your next game after that is against Colorado, you're following Carolina, you're following Colorado, you're on social media a few days ahead, watching what's going on with those teams. So you tend to focus on who you're playing in the upcoming weeks more closely than some teams that you might not play for another month.
And what's most difficult about doing play-by-play?
Well, I think the most difficult thing is how the place we sit changes from city to city. In San Jose, I have a really good location. I'm close to the ice. But when we go on the road, it varies from arena to arena. And sometimes we're really high up and really far away. And the puck is really small. It's sometimes really hard to see deflections, pucks that hit the post or hit the crossbar or go off somebody's skate and go into the net. So that would be the biggest challenge for me is how different it is arena to arena as to where we sit and how close we are to the action.
Wait, where are the booths at SAP Center?
We're right in the first row of the second level. So there's the main level, and
Mm-hmm.
then the upper deck. I'm on the very first row at center ice of the upper deck in section 215. It might be the best location in all of the NHL. It's really good.
I think I've seen you via a game. Like I saw your booth.
Okay. Yeah, you can
I
see
was
it
on.
right from the aisle.
I think I was section 219, the final
Yeah, well, you
game.
should come over and visit next time you're there.
Yeah. And what's the most rewarding part of your job?
Uh, being with the team and riding the roller coaster of a season. It's a long season. Training camp starts in September, and if you win the Stanley Cup, it doesn't end till June. So it really is a long season, and there's ups and downs for every team. No team wins every night, and no team loses every night, and every team has a winning streak, and every team has losing streaks. And even though it's hard sometimes when the team is losing, you come together as a group, and then when the winning happens, it feels so good. So I always say every season is a roller coaster ride wrapped up in a soap opera, and a soap opera is just that there's lots of different things that happen in a season with personalities and trades and injuries and things like that. But the ups and downs, just like life, are it's the journey. It's the journey of each season, and that's what I enjoy the most.
And have players ever gone a little mad at you for something you said during a broadcast?
I've had it happen a couple of times, but most guys are so professional and they understand that we have a job to do and that we don't have a script. What we say isn't written out. It just comes off the top of our head. And that makes it prone to sometimes overreacting, being over emotional on TV or making a mistake. And they understand that. Just as when players on the ice, the same thing happens to them. They get too emotional sometimes. They make mistakes. And so I think they appreciate that in what we do as well. But it does happen sometimes. And sometimes it happens more with their family members who don't like something you said, and they might make a comment. But that's very, very rare. It hardly ever happens. Most people are very good about it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've covered a lot of sports such as hockey, soccer, basketball, baseball, gymnastics, and dog sliding. Am I missing anything, and which one was the most difficult?
Um, you've you've probably got it all covered in there. I still think Probably the more difficult ones are things like gymnastics, because you're really relying on an analyst, your color commentator, who's usually a gymnastics expert, and I'm not one. And those were difficult for me. And hockey is very difficult because, as opposed to basketball, whenever there's a substitution, there's a whistle.
Yeah,
Same in football. A play ends and then players come on and go off the field.
but hockey is
And in baseball,
just
same thing. If you're going to make a change in your defense, then it has to be at a stoppage. But in hockey, the players are constantly going on and off the ice, and you have to recognize who the new players coming on for both sides are, see those numbers, know those names, and say them instantly. So, hockey's right up there as being difficult, but that's what makes it fun and makes it a challenge.
now going on to the Sharks. So, how would you sum up the Sharks seasons and what were your key takeaways, both positive and negative?
Well, last season was difficult. We finished last in the league, 32nd. We were last in goals scored and last in goals allowed. So it was a challenging year for the team, and obviously disappointing to lose that many games. So that's the disappointing side. But the positive side and the uplifting side was the different mood around the team. And it started with Macklin Celebrini, who was one of the top rookies in all of the NHL last year, and I think will turn into a superstar player. He's still only 19, so he's not that yet, but he may very well turn out to be that. The Sharks also had William Eklund, who is now, you know, been around for a few years, but last year he showed again that he's going to be a really valuable player for us. And then there was Will Smith, another draft pick from the year before Macklin Celebrini. He had his rookie season. And to see those three players emerge and be important players for the Sharks was really exciting. It was exciting when we traded for Yaroslav Askarov, who I think will be our starting goalie this coming season. He didn't play that much last year and he had an injury, but that was exciting as well. There were other young players like Colin Graff and Shakir Mukhamadullin and others that are all young players who could really be important for the Sharks in the future. And to see them all get their first tastes of the NHL or their first tastes as Sharks was really fun to see. You could tell the fans loved it. And even though we were last, as I said on one of the broadcasts, the Sharks just might be the most fun last place team you've ever seen. And it felt like that on a lot of nights. Even when we lost close games, it was still fun.
The Sharks drafted Michael Misa with the number 2 pick. Do you think he will be in the lineup this upcoming season?
That's hard to say. He's only 18. It's really tough to make it in the NHL when you're 18, when you're stepping right out of junior hockey and you haven't been in college yet. You haven't been at any pro level yet in the minor leagues. It's really tough because you're playing against men and they're playing for their livelihoods. So it's much different than the environment you've been in. I think he'll get every opportunity to make the team. I think he will play NHL games this year because the rule is he can play up to 9 games in the NHL before the Sharks have to make a decision as to whether or not he goes back to junior hockey or stays with the San Jose Sharks or goes to college hockey. He has that option now as well. So we'll see. I don't want to put any pressure on him. If he's not ready, we'll know. The coaches will know. Mike Greer, the general manager, and their assessment of him, they'll know. They'll see him play in some preseason games and watch him practice against NHL players, and they'll know and they'll make the right decision in combination with his family and with Michael, what their needs are and what they feel is best for his son or what Michael feels is best for him. It would be exciting if he was with us all year, but we'll just have to wait and see.
What are your top 3 Sharks moments of all time?
Well, we've already hit 2 of them with Jamie Baker's goal, with Barclay Goodrow's goal against the Vegas Golden Knights. And I would say in 2016, when we went to the Stanley Cup final, the the game where we beat St. Louis in the semifinals to go to the Stanley Cup. That was the night we knew we were going to be in the Stanley Cup for the first time ever. That would be a highlight for me.
What game was that? Was that 4, 5, 6,
I
or
think it was
7?
game 6 against the St. Louis Blues in San Jose. And to clinch that at home against in front of all our fans was awesome to be there. Very emotional moment.
Mine are Goodrow's Sharks against the Red Wings, and I quite liked Joe Thornton's series clincher against the Kings.
Yeah, the jumbo slide. That was a good
Yeah.
one too. In overtime, we had just killed a 5 minute penalty. LA was on the power play for 5 minutes, and then in overtime, Joe won it. One of the biggest goals of his life.
And And in the 1993 season, the Sharks only had 11 wins and 71 losses, along with two ties. The next year, as we all know, they they won 33 or 35 games, and they made the playoffs and, of course, beat the Detroit Red Wings, who were the heavy favorites to win the Stanley Cup. What do you remember about those 2 years, and what do you think changed?
Well, year two was tough. And again, I wasn't doing all the games. That was still Joe Starkey in the second season, but I did about 15 games that year. And you're right, to lose 71 games was really brutal. I mean, it was really, really hard. And it was hard to imagine that we were going to be in the playoffs next year. But the team went through a lot of changes. And probably the biggest were getting Igor Larionov and Sergei Makarov, two of the most famous Russian players of all time. And that changed our team. And then we added a Swedish player, Johan Garpenlov. And then we added another player from Latvia, Sandis Ozolic, a defenseman, and another defenseman, Jeff Norton, and then the goalie, Arturs Urbe. And those five players really transformed our team. And the first five I mentioned played as a five-man unit a lot of the time. Like they were always on the ice together, which was something most NHL teams didn't do. And Larionov and Makarov were fantastic. They were world champions, Olympic champions, and they transformed our team and took us to a whole nother level. And then other players climbed on board and fed off of their excellence, and we became a really good team throughout the season and snuck into the playoffs, and then had that upset over Detroit. It was an amazing year, and it was the first year we were in San Jose Arena too, because we had played in the Cow Palace for the first 2 years. So to do that in front of our brand new San Jose fans and have that kind of a season was unbelievable.
Was that the first year you were the full-time broadcaster?
Yes, so that was my first as well. I mentioned earlier my first year as a soccer broadcaster in San Diego, we won the championship. And here in my first year as the full-time announcer for the Sharks, we made the playoffs and upset Detroit. So I was really lucky.
And when do you think the Sharks will be a playoff contending team?
Well, I think because of our talent, I mentioned some of the players. We have a lot of other players in our minor league system. Outstanding young defenseman Sam Dickinson is going to have a real opportunity to make the team this year and be an important factor going forward. Yaroslav Askarov, the goalie I mentioned, you have to have a good goalie in the NHL or you're not going to win. And there's a whole bunch of other players after that who don't have NHL games yet, so you can't say they're going to be great, but they project to be NHL players just on what they've done so far. And, if half of those players who we think are going to make it actually do, then we're going to be a really, really good team in the next 3 to 5 years and not only be a playoff team, but be a Stanley Cup contending team again. It's going to take a little time. It's going to take patience. It never goes exactly like you plan it, just like life. It takes twists and turns, and there's roller coasters. But I think that with the talent that our team has put together, Mike Greer, our general manager, and his team of hockey minds, they've brought together some really interesting looking players, and we already know what players like Celebrini, Smith, Eklund can do. I think it's going to be a very exciting time to be a Sharks fan for the next 10 years.
Talk to me about your closeness with the team. I was reading an old article that said Jeff Friesen was a common guest at your house. Do you end up being friends with most of the players?
I would say to some extent it's changed now because I've gotten older and the players are always the same age because by the time they reach almost 40, they don't play hockey anymore. And there's a lot of young players in their 20s around me all the time. So when I was in my 30s, they were really close to my age and it was much more easy to relate to them. But now I'm in my 60s and I'm old enough to be not only their father, in some cases, I'm old enough to be their grandfather. So it's a different relationship than it used to be. You get closer to some than others. Um, but I still keep, friendships with certainly with the players who have retired and now work for the Sharks, like Evgeny Nabokov and Ryan Clough and Tommy Wingles and Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau. They're around all the time. So it's easy to keep those friendships going. Some other retired players who still live in the San Jose area, like Scott Hannon and Dan Boyle, have remained friends. Tom Peterson and others. So, it's changed for me, my relationship with the younger players, but some of the veteran guys who still live around San Jose, we've stayed friends.
And yeah, I know this question, you should probably know it too, but this is a Sharks trivia. There was a contest to name the team. Sharks was the runner-up. Do you know what name won?
I don't.
It was the Blades.
The Blades. Yeah, I could see that one as well, but I'm glad they went with Sharks. It's a better name.
It was the Blades, but the owners were a bit questioning it because of its weapon-like meaning.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just like the basketball team in Washington
The
used to be called the
Bullets.
Bullets.
And then there was some incident that happened, and the owner just said, we're gonna change it to the Wizards.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna go to some personal questions. So,
Okay.
right now, what other sports do you follow besides hockey?
I like watching golf now. I live in a golf community and I get a chance in the off season to play a lot of golf. So I like watching golf. I like watching the British Open was recently on and other tournaments. I know for some people it's really boring, but if you play golf, it's fun to watch the best in the world do it and imagine what it would be like if you could even be close to that. So I like watching golf.
What can we find you doing when you're not working? Like,
Well, in the off season like this year, this one's been a different thing because we got a puppy. We got a golden retriever puppy, and when you have a puppy, it's a lot of work. And my kids are grown up; they don't live with me anymore. My wife and I are alone together, and We had two dogs, and one passed away in February, so we decided to get another puppy to go along with our 3-year-old named Gordy, who was named for Gordie Howe. And so we got a puppy in June. Her name is Gracie. And so we just decided to stay home. So we've been home a lot this summer. We're lucky enough to have a swimming pool, and both of the dogs love swimming. So we're in the pool. I like to golf a little bit. We've done some trips around the Bay Area to places like Tahoe and Napa in Half Moon Bay. And we like to take the dogs to the beach in Carmel because you don't have to have them on a leash there. They can just roam around on the beach and play in the ocean. So those are the kind of things you'd have me doing in the off season. I do charity work. I MC golf tournaments and do auctions for different organizations. And the Sharks have some functions which I go to in the summer as well. I used to do a lot of other jobs. I used to do soccer in the summer and do other things. I've done some movie work. I was lucky enough to be in Inside Out and Inside Out 2. So that was fun. I'd love to do more of that in the future. We'll see about that. And yeah, just things like that. But this has been, we call it the Summer of Gracie because that's the puppy's name. And everything we've been doing has been revolving around her, but it's been a lot of fun. She's really cute.
is that one the puppy on your ex profile, or is that the other dog?
Yeah, it would be on the X profile. I think there's a picture up there of the puppy.
Yeah.
If not there on Instagram or somewhere, if you go on my social media, you'll find lots of pictures of both dogs.
What what was the breed of the other dog, Gordy?
It was also a golden retriever. So English cream means that they're white. So instead of golden, they're white. That's the only difference. But they're really loving dogs and really gentle, and they love to wrestle and play like all the time. They do shed because they have long white hair, but you just live with it. It's worth it.
Yeah, we went to Vegas for NBA Summer League. Um, and and my aunt lives there, and she has a golden doodle who's
Oh yeah. Was that a high energy dog?
yes.
Yeah,
Well,
ours are that way too.
it
But then
gets
when
high.
they get tired, then they're just out. Like they
He
are
gets high
sleeping hard.
energy, but then after like 15 minutes or so, he just is not high
They
energy.
they crash.
Yeah. But he has but he has a huge he loves my aunt's fiance and well anytime he leaves, even if my aunt's still there, the dog will still cry.
Oh, yeah, they're great animals.
And so what is your favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book. Probably Dan Ruzanowski's book of all the things about the sharks that you maybe didn't know. I think I have it here somewhere. See. Yeah, there it is.
If these walls could talk, then are they sharks? That seems
Stories from the Sharks Ice, Locker Room, and Press Box by Dan Ruzanowski with Ross McKeon with a foreword by Joe Pavelski. You should get it.
I'll look into it. What's your favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a prison movie, and it's the favorite of a lot of guys my age.
Not Inside Out because
That's up there too. I actually liked Inside Out too, even better than Inside Out.
I think I like two better. And how did your friendship with the John Lasseter develop?
Through a charity event that I used to be involved in Sonoma. It was the Sonoma Valley Harvest Wine Auction. It's every Labor Day weekend. And John Lasseter has a winery, Lasseter Wines, and he was always a big donator of things to that auction. Like he would show up and have original costumes from Toy Story when that was a big movie. You know, he produced that and movies like that. And so I got to know him through that. And then when he did Inside Out, and there was a hockey scene in there, and the family lived in the Bay Area, San Francisco, he decided he wanted authenticity. He wanted the authentic hockey announcer to be in the movie, and that was me. And so out of the blue, I got a call from Pixar, which is the company that John Lasseter started with Steve Jobs, who isn't with us anymore, the founder of Apple. And and so they contacted me and said, John Lasseter wants you to be in the movie. Would you be interested? And I said, okay. And that was the first movie I was ever in. And it won the Academy Award that year for the best animated motion picture. And then when they did Inside Out 2, they wanted to use a clip of me in the credits. And so I got to be in it again. And that one turned out to be the biggest money-making animated movie of all time. So I was really lucky. The only two movies I was in were really successful.
What is your favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show. Um, Probably something that I can still watch and I still think is funny all the time is Seinfeld, but I also like watching Shark Tank.
I mean the ones where they have these people have some ideas and they have to like go to the judges for some money.
That's the one. Yeah, there's lots of people who have ideas to start companies or sell things, and it's just it's fun to watch people's dreams come to the point where they actually have created something and they're trying to turn it into something huge. And most of them don't work out, but it's really fun to watch.
Yeah. I I just graduated from fifth grade and I'm going
Mhm.
into middle school. And last year, one of the third grade classes had a Shark Tank thingy, and they asked me, some of the kids in my class, to be judges like me.
Okay, that's a cool idea. You have a
Yeah,
must have a good teacher to think of that.
I saw I was one of the judges, and they had some good creations. And one of them, I think they would have it was $2,000, and we would get 35%.
Okay.
And going back on to the questions, what is your favorite food?
I'm I like steak. I can't eat it all the time. Of course, you got to watch it because it's not really that good for you if you eat it a lot, but a good steak dinner is still my favorite.
How about your favorite dessert?
Cupcakes. My wife owns Frost Cupcake Factory in San Jose. Her name is Andrea, and a number of years ago, she won Cupcake Wars on the Food Network, and she makes the best cupcakes in the world.
What's your favorite type of cupcake?
I would say red velvet or burnt almond.
Hmm. Those sound pretty good.
Yep, you should try them. They're great.
If you could travel to any place in the world for free, where would you go?
That's a good one. Um, I've always wanted to go to Spain, and it's one country I've never been to. So I'll pick Spain.
Spain. We're doing a Europe trip next year, and I want
Oh,
to go
wow.
to Italy, and my dad wants to go to Spain, so we're having a little decision which one we should go to.
Yeah, well, that World Cup I did in 1990, that was in Italy, and I was there for 6 weeks. And you will love Italy if you go. It's really, really good. And the food there is amazing. And the pizza is the best pizza you've ever had in your life.
What city in Italy? Was it just one city or?
No, because it was the World Cup, they have the games in various cities. So I was based in Rome, but I did games in Bari, which is way on the far southern east coast. I did games in Florence. I did games in Turin. I did games in Naples, and I did a game in Sicily in Palermo. So I got to go all around. And I also visited Venice, where they have all the canals and
Yeah.
you drive around in boats. I went there just as a side trip for some vacation time after the World Cup, but I got to see a lot of the country.
If you if you could meet any person, alive or dead, who would it be?
My father, see him again. As far as somebody to meet that I haven't met before, I'll say George Clooney. He's probably my favorite actor.
Um, I haven't heard of him. What did he do?
Oh, he was in, did you see Ocean's 8 or Ocean's 10 or Ocean's 11?
Uh,
And
no.
he's a pretty famous actor. Just Google him, and then when you see his face, you'll probably recognize him.
Okay. How do you spell the last name?
Clooney, Clooney.
Okay, cool. And what is your all-time starting hockey team?
Oh boy. Well, Wayne Gretzky. I won't go wingers or centers. I'll just say forwards. Forwards would be Wayne Gretzky, Gordie Howe, and Mario Lemieux. And then on defense, it would be, um, I'll say Bobby Orr and Cale Makar. And the goalie, I would say, would be Martin Brodeur.
I, w I would do everything, but I would put my goaltender as Patrick Roy.
Okay. Yeah, Patrick was he was right there and just every bit as close as Martin Brodeur, but yeah, Brodeur he wins out for me in goal, but was a great pick too.
Yeah. I interviewed Sheng Peng, if you know him,
Yes,
earlier
I know Shane.
last month, and he had his favorite hockey team, all-time hockey team.
Do you remember who he picked?
Um, I remember he didn't put Lemieux because he didn't want it to be super, super overpowered, but I remember Gretzky. I think he put Gordie Howe. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, your viewers can go back and look at that episode, I guess, right?
Yeah. And what was the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I ever gotten, I think it's to be yourself. Don't try and be somebody else, and don't worry about what people think of you. And don't pay too much attention to what people say about you, especially now on social media where everybody has an opinion. I try to, sometimes you can't help but see it. And sometimes you see things that are negative toward you. But I think you just have to be confident in your own self and express yourself in your own way and the way that you become. through growing up with your family and the influence your parents have on you, and people and things like that, and not try and imitate what someone else's life is. Just try and live your own. It's hard, and it's hard to ignore criticism, but be yourself.
What advice would you give to up and coming broadcasters? Would you?
I would say try and do things like what you're doing, AJ. This is amazing that you're doing this podcast at your age. It's giving you so much valuable experience. First, to do the research, and I can tell you've done a lot of work getting ready for this. But it also makes you comfortable in front of a camera. And one of the most important things as a broadcaster is learning how to listen to what the other broadcaster that you're usually working with is saying. Because you have to learn to listen to what they say while you're also thinking at the same time of the next thing you're going to say. And that's hard. It's a real skill. And I still struggle with it, because you get sidetracked on what you're thinking about and you sometimes forget to listen to what the other person is saying. And it's very important because they may say something that you really need to comment on after they say it. And if you haven't been paying attention, you'll just won't even hear it. So I think that's a really important skill, and a benefit that you're getting at your young age. And again, to answer your question for aspiring broadcasters, any chance you get to do something like this, or to announce a small little sport, or just do your own pretend broadcast into your phone and record it and listen to it later as you're watching it on TV. Maybe turn the sound down. If you're a baseball fan, watch the Giants game and try and announce the Giants game when you can't hear the announcers. And then if you keep doing that, you'll get better and better and better.
Yeah, so that was all the questions I had, Randy. So
Okay.
thank you again for joining me on my podcast.
Thank you for the invitation, AJ. I really appreciate it. And go Sharks.
Bye.